So let's make 2 more frames in here. Just gets worse and worse. Okay, so now let's put the grid on and make some keyframes again. So this one will be the first frame of that, and we'll turn it on as well. And then we'll have another frame, another keyframe, turn this on and put that in the position as well. And we'll take these over to the animation area. First, let's make a little animation. Here we'll turn it on to beats mode so we can get a little more control, and a quick trick to make it easy to make fast things with control is putting this into the 16th note setting. So now let's make this shorter, use L1 and right. Cool, so now we can see those smaller beats. And then we can loop it. If we do that, let's just put that there, turn that off for now so we can see what this is doing, and then we play it so it's kind of playing through those 2 frames. And we want to have this running while the X is like greater than some value or lower than some value, going right or left. So now let's, for that I found the easiest way is using a timeline. So let's get a port first to get the X speed and plug the X speed into it. Let's see what values this gives using a number displayer, turning up the decimals. Right, so as you can see, it kind of wiggles about a lot because it's using physics. It's not like only using the movers to move. It's also trying to kind of collide with this and stabilize and all this kind of stuff. So this is why we're going to use a timeline so that we can say that, so give it like a dead zone in the middle where we're going to say it's not moving at all. So let's have a keyframe. Let's first turn this timeline off, then we'll use a keyframe to turn it on, but only while it's in certain areas of this timeline. So let's drag that out there, have that over there. If we look at that again, it's giving us minus and plus values, but we only want a percentage between 0 and 1. So if we use a signal manipulator, we can remap those values to something more useful. So we'll wire the X speed into the signal manipulator, and the input is going to be a range between -1 and 1, and the output will be between 0 and 1. So it will kind of shrink these values down into this range. Let's plug that into there, pin that to the screen. So now as we're moving left, it's pulling the playhead left. As we move right, it's pulling the playhead right. We can always adjust it later. That's the beauty of using the timeline. It's very easy to adjust these kind of ranges of values and what they do. But we want to kind of override this standing frame while we're doing that. So we'll say we'll have a node so that we can put the value through there, put the power through there, and just turn off the node when we don't want it to get through. So for this stuff I'm going to have a different keyframe. We just copy that down and remove that recording, and then we'll record into it turning off the standing keyframe. Then we can just have them roughly the same size. Cool, so now he's running, or like skateboarding, I guess. So while we're jumping, while we're in the air, we want to turn like this whole thing off. So we're going to make this a chip. So this is the running animation chip. and I'll put all this into there. Oh, put all this into there. Copy that over there. Rewire it up. Job done. And then we can have it only activate while we're on the ground. So we can copy a ground one and power that chip. And that should be in there as well. Cool. So that all the running stuff doesn't do anything, doesn't get processed, which is good for performance and things like that. Unless you're actually on the ground and we want to see that stuff. Cool. But again, if we have that bug and the physics is moving us, we still see the running animation, so it doesn't look really weird just sliding without moving. Which is what the kind of procedural way of going about it gets you. And you can go up slopes and stuff with this as well. If I just make a slope, it still works fine. You probably don't want these notches in the way, but yeah. And if you fall down a slope, it's going to give you that running animation, so it looks like he's running down the hill, which is cool, just like the puppet does. We've got the basic animations in, but when you're running right, he's running right, and if you're running left, he also runs right in the animation. So let's tweak that. One method you can do with mixed results is to have a keyframe, and we'll need the grid to do this properly. We scope in here and align the grid to this cube, and then we can scope out, and then grab it by the center and use L3, click in the left stick to flip the whole thing. So we want a similar thing to in the running thing. We want to say if it's beyond this point and we have a dead zone in the middle and stuff. If we're beyond this point, then set it to be the right flip that we want it to be. So actually we'll take these things out like that. This will still work because a keyframe in here is turning that on, but if the chip is still off because it's not on the ground, then it still won't be able to draw power. I'll just tweak this so that so it's easier to see which direction the standing pose is in. By default it's facing right. If you think about how most games work, when you start moving right, then you're facing right with whatever art you've got, and then normally if you push left, then you'll be standing facing left until you push right again. So something like that would use a selector, because that's how a selector works. So we have a selector, and normally we don't want to flip. By default a selector sends a signal from A, so we don't want to flip there, but then we do want to flip in a particular case. So in here we'll have a couple of switches, and these will when these turn on, so we'll play time and turn this switch on, that's sending a signal into B, but even when I turn it off, it still stays at B until you tell it to be some other port, like turning on the one plugged into A. So we'll use that. Okay, so then we'll, on this keyframe here, that's moving left, so we'll have that be flipped, and then this keyframe here is when it's moving right, so we'll have it not flipped. So let's just pin that to the screen and playtest. So now you can see when we move right a bit, then we stay on the A, and then when we move left a bit, we stay on the B, because these switches are changing what the active port is. So now if I just close all these down and play, then when I move left, then we're facing left, and all the jump animations and stuff are facing left. When we move right, then everything is looking right. However, one thing you may notice from time to time is there's a frame now and then in this when it flips where it's just invisible for a tiny split second. Let's turn this off again because it then we can see all the frames and everything. So another way of doing it so that it doesn't spend time figuring out how to flip it is to group all of this. Let's have the grid on. Cool. So we'll group all of this. We'll make a copy and have that copy flipped. Because we copied these objects, all the keyframes that affected these frames, these animation frames, will affect these as well because of how the keyframes work. So now we have a non-flipped version and a flipped version. So then on our where'd it go? Animation. So on our keyframe, we don't want to flip the whole thing. We'll just turn this one off, turn this one on, and move it to the right position. But normally have that one off. Okay, so normally this set is on, and that one is off. Then when we need to flip, we turn the non-flipped one off, turn the flipped one on, and move it to the right position. So now it still works in the same way, but you don't tend to get that that flicker of nothing showing up. Cool. And you can of course extend all of this with more frames of animation. Have like a couple of frames while you're in the air to give it some life. Add idle animations, do whatever you want to do with it. I'd like to thank Jack Power, Martinity DK, Hyper Dream Surfer, and all of my other supporters for making this tutorial possible. Thanks for watching. If you'd like me to continue making these tutorials and helping creators across the internet, you can find out how to support me in the link in the description. Thanks for your consideration, and I'll see you in the next one.